Hello and welcome back to Planning for Retirement. I'm your host, Scott Nelson, and with me is Elyse Zaris. Hi,
Hi.
Elyse.
Hello.
So, what burning questions do you have on your mind today?
Well, since we do talk about retirement and retirement planning, what are some risks involved in retirement? What are some things that people need to be aware of?
Well, I like to tell people that in retirement, the rules change. Um, there are a lot of people out there in the industry who can help accumulate a retirement nest egg, but I have not found many at all that acknowledge or address the things that can happen in retirement. For example, have you ever heard of sequence of returns risk?
I have, but I wonder if those viewing or listening have heard of that. So, can you go into a little bit of detail as to what sequence of returns risk is?
Sure. So, sequence of returns risk could probably just as easily be called dumb luck risk. And what sequence of returns risk says is that if the first few years of your retirement you are blessed with good returns in the markets, then your odds of having a successful retirement are increased. On the other hand, if you just have the poor luck of retiring right when the market has a few negative return years, now the probability of success is greatly diminished throughout the remainder of your retirement years.
That's really scary to think about.
So, what can be done? Well, an obvious answer to me would be let's not have so much money in the market. We want to have what we refer to as a volatility shield. In other words, we want money somewhere not in the market that we can withdraw so we're not having to pull from our portfolio that is in the market after it has dropped. We don't want to sell low.
No, we do not.
So, how can we do that? Well, having an emergency fund is a great step towards not having to take money out of your market account after a market downturn. The second tool that we use in our practice with a great deal of success are indexed annuities. We have found that indexed annuities work in a superior way to fill the role that was formerly used or filled by bonds, since most people to get the bonds in their portfolio are forced to use bond mutual funds. Those have been not only volatile lately, but they have been correlated to the stock market. For example, in 2022, people actually lost more in the bond portion of the portfolio than the stock portion of the portfolio. So we want somewhere where we can withdraw funds after a market downturn so that we're not having to sell low, which makes the rest of our portfolio last longer.
Great. What are some other risks in retirement?
Probably the biggest risk in retirement is longevity. So we like to jokingly tell people when
Do you mean if they live too long?
well, either way, really. If they live too long, the longer they live, the more likely it is that they'll experience a market correction sometime along the way. The more likely it is that they'll have some type of a health care event and possibly even a long term care style event, which can be really expensive. The longer they live, the longer they have to keep paying their living expenses, the more impact inflation has on them, which can be a real problem. So, here again, this is where annuities can be a really tremendous tool, especially if they have a lifetime income benefit attached to them, and even better if we can make that a Roth IRA in that annuity so it's tax free. We can then address longevity, we can address tax rate increases. Longer you live, the greater the probability those will have to go up just because of the national debt situation. etc. So, yeah, there are definitely things that can be done to address retirement risks.
So we addressed sequence of returns and longevity. What are some other risks that people should be aware of?
Well, as I mentioned, tax rate risk.
Taxes.
So, current sentiment in the United States is that the Tax Cuts and Job Act rates are likely to be extended for maybe as many as 8 more years. All of that's still speculative at this point. But we have almost a $37 trillion deficit that has to be dealt with. There are efforts being made to trim spending at the national level. I just don't think they can find enough inefficiencies and et cetera to cure it. So at some point, I believe tax rates have to go up. Unfortunately, I'm not alone. I formed my opinion from reading PhD economists' opinions of what must happen going forward. So if you're like most Americans and you have most of your investable net worth in traditional 401k IRA type holdings, then what you've agreed to do is pay taxes at whatever the rates are when you take the withdrawals. So if that happens in the future and tax rates, say, double, which is what's being recommended, in some cases even more than double, well, you've just diminished what you really have available for your lifestyle.
Yeah, and then tack on longevity to that. I mean,
It's a risk multiplier.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, risk multiplier. So those are the kinds of things we do at our office is we help look at people's portfolio and give them ideas as to how to optimize that, which is to say, how can we minimize all of the various risks that are unique to retirement in many cases so that you have the best shot of having a successful retirement and not have regrets that, you really can't do anything about later on in life.
And what do you like to tell clients when they come in?
Plan well so you can retire happy. No? What else?
I was thinking.
Tell me exactly when
yes.
you're going to die, and then we can plan
Yep.
it even better still, yeah.
And there you go. But yes, we would love for you to plan well so that you can retire happy and avoid all of the risks that come with retirement.
So if you're approaching retirement or you know someone who is, we'd love it if you would share this episode with them and invite them to get a free consultation. I think that's a tremendous offer for anyone to get a free second opinion on what they have going on. I know if it were me, I would want someone to point out any shortfalls or holes, chinks in my armor, if you will, before I go into battle rather than after I take an arrow somewhere.
Yes, and also I know that people have questions all the time. We're happy to answer those questions in that free strategy or session if you come in. And yeah, Scott's really good at educating. So,
well, we really love what we do, and we love having people have peace of mind. I mean, what kind of retirement is it if you're taking Maalox as you watch the financial news reports every day? I mean, that's just no way to try to be a retiree. We would rather have people have peace of mind knowing that they've got things set.
great. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, as always. Thanks, everyone.